The tears still burn in my eyes when I look at that shirt hanging in my closet. Queen of Failures. The golden letters seem to scream at me even now, 3 days later. 79 years of life, and my own son managed to sum it all up in 3 cruel words. Before continuing, tell me in the comments which city you are listening to this story from. And if you also love your family despite everything, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss stories like this. I can still feel the weight of that moment in my chest. It was supposed to be a special day, my 79th birthday. I, Eleanor Wilson, widowed for 5 years, decided that I deserved a proper celebration. I spent weeks planning everything. I reserved the hall at the Riverside Community Center, ordered catering from the best bakery in the neighborhood, chose every detail with care. I wore my navy blue silk blouse, the one my late husband Thomas always said made me look elegant. "Mom, you're going overboard," Richard had said when I mentioned my plans. "What's the point of a big party like that? It's just family." But I insisted. Perhaps deep in my tired soul, I hoped he would finally see me, not as the mother he always criticized, but as a woman who still had dignity at 79 years old. The party started well. The guests arrived, neighbors, some friends from church, distant relatives. My grandson Ethan, the light of my life, was the first to arrive, bringing a bouquet of daisies that he picked out himself. "Grandma, you look beautiful," he whispered in my ear, and for a moment I felt young again. But then Richard arrived. My heart still aches remembering the smile on his face when he entered the hall with Jennifer, my daughter-in-law, and a gift. Bag. I thought it was strange. He never gave elaborate gifts. "Mom, we have a surprise for you," he announced, asking for everyone's attention. Silence fell over the hall. My hands trembled slightly as he approached. For one absurd moment, I thought that maybe, finally, he was going to say something nice about me. Perhaps acknowledge the sacrifices I made, the sleepless nights when he was a baby, the 3 jobs I maintained to pay for his law school. "We brought something special for the birthday girl," Richard said, pulling a black T-shirt from the bag. When he unfolded it, my world collapsed. In bright golden letters it read, "Queen of Failures." The laughter started low, some guests thinking it was an inside joke, but when they saw my face, the silence returned heavy as lead. Richard, oblivious or indifferent to my pain, continued, "It's perfect for you, Mom. After all, you always taught us to laugh at our mistakes, right?" My legs weakened. Ethan ran to support me, his young eyes full of indignation. "Dad, that's not funny at all," he said, his voice trembling with contained anger. "Oh, Ethan, you're too sensitive," Richard replied, still holding the T-shirt. "Your grandmother knows it's a joke. She herself always says she got everything wrong in life, raising her children, her marriage, her career choices." Each word was like a stab wound. I never said that. Never. What I always confessed, perhaps, in moments of vulnerability, was that I could have done better. What woman of my generation didn't think so? We raised children alone while our husbands worked, without instruction manuals, without psychological support, just with love and instinct. "Richard, please," I murmured, my voice barely audible, but he was in his element now, the successful lawyer putting on his show. "Come on, Mom, put on the shirt. It's your birthday present." He approached, trying to put the garment over my silk blouse. The rough fabric brushed against my face, and the smell of cheap ink invaded my nostrils. "And you? What would you do in my place? Would you have the strength to react?" Ethan pushed his father's hand away firmly. "Enough, Dad. Grandma doesn't want that." But the damage was done. I looked around and saw pity in the guests' eyes. Pity. The only thing worse than contempt. The rest of the party is a blur in my memory. I know I tried to maintain my composure. that Ethan stayed by my side. The whole time that some friends came to hug me, but all I could think was, how did I get to this? How did my own son, the boy I breastfed with such care, grow up to publicly humiliate me on my birthday? Jennifer, of course, took photos. For the family album, she said with that fake smile, I've learned to recognize over the years. I saw when she whispered something to Richard, the two of them chuckling quietly, accomplices in my humiliation. When I finally got home that night, my small apartment in Cedar Heights never seemed so welcoming. Ethan insisted on accompanying me, prepared chamomile tea, and stayed with me until late. Grandma, he doesn't deserve you, he said, his brown eyes, so similar to Thomas's, full of held-back tears. You're the strongest person I know. You raised everyone practically by yourself, worked your whole life, never let anything be lacking. His words were a balm, but the wound was too deep. That night, lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. It wasn't out of anger, at least not just that. It was for justice, for dignity, for valuing those who truly value me. The next morning, I called Mr. Thompson, my attorney for 3 decades. I need to make changes to my will, I said firmly. On the other end of the line, he must have noticed something in my determination, because he only replied, You can come this afternoon, Mrs. Wilson. We'll take care of everything. As I prepared to leave, I looked again at the T-shirt that Richard had left on a chair. Queen of Failures. Perhaps he was right in one aspect. I failed as a mother. I failed to teach him the value of respect, gratitude, unconditional love. But it wasn't too late to get at least one thing right, ensuring that my legacy would go to those who truly deserved it. Mr. Thompson's office always had that smell of old paper and strong coffee. Sitting in that leather armchair that I had known for decades, I felt the weight of my decision. It wasn't just about money. It never was. It was about recognizing who really saw me as a human being. Mrs. Wilson, are you sure about this? Mr. Thompson asked, his reading glasses sliding down his nose as he reviewed the documents, completely excluding Richard. Absolutely certain, I replied, surprising even myself with the firmness in my voice. I want everything to go to Ethan. The apartment, the savings, my mother's jewelry, everything. He nodded slowly, typing the changes. And what about your son? Nothing at all. A symbolic reminder, I said after thinking. The T-shirt he gave me as a gift, the one that says Queen of Failures. I want it specified in the will that it's his only inheritance. Mr. Thompson raised his eyebrows but didn't comment. Professional as always, he simply documented my wishes. As I signed the papers, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. How does a mother reach this point? In the following days, I maintained my routine. Sunday Mass, coffee with Mrs. Baker at the corner bakery, evening TV shows. But something had changed in me. It wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. Finally, at 79, I understood that love doesn't mean accepting humiliation. Ethan continued to visit me regularly, as he always did. 3 times a week, sometimes more. He brought warm cheese bread, fixed the dripping faucet, helped me with my cell phone when it froze. Small gestures that meant the world to me. Grandma, you're different, he observed one afternoon as we had coffee on my small, flower-filled balcony. More serene? I smiled, touching his young face. I'm at peace, my dear. I finally understood some things. The bomb exploded 2 weeks later. I received a formal letter, not a phone call, not a visit, a letter, announcing that I would be a grandmother again. Richard and Jennifer were expecting their 3rd child. We thought it appropriate to inform you in writing, the letter said in a formal tone. The baby shower will be next month. Your presence is expected. Expected? Not desired, not wanted, expected, like a social obligation. Even so, I decided to attend, not for them, but for the innocent child who would arrive in this complicated world. The baby shower was at their house in Oakwood Hills, that mansion they loved to show off on social media. I arrived with my simple gift, a baby blanket I knitted with my own hands, each stitch made with love and hope that this grandchild might grow up differently. I was placed at a table in the back, partially hidden by a flower arrangement. The message was clear. Your presence is ceremonial, not celebrated. Ethan, who also attended, noticed immediately. This is ridiculous, Grandma, he whispered, pulling up a chair to sit beside me. Have they no shame? That's when he told me about the rumors. In a city like Portland, news travels fast. Apparently, my visit to the lawyer hadn't gone unnoticed. The doorman at Mr. Thompson's building was a cousin of the maid of a friend of Jennifer's. The gossip was already circulating. Old Eleanor Wilson had changed her will. During the party, I observed Richard from afar. He commanded the event like a conductor, smiling for the cameras, hugging important guests, displaying his perfect life. But every now and then, his eyes met mine, and I saw something there, restlessness, guilt, or just calculation. The confrontation came at the end of the party, when most guests had already left. I was in the kitchen, helping to tidy up some things. Old habits die hard, when Richard appeared. We need to talk, Mom. The tone was no longer playful. It was Richard the lawyer, serious and calculating. About? I asked, continuing to dry the dishes. You know about what? These rumors about the will. They're not rumors, I interrupted, finally looking him in the eyes. They're facts. He recoiled as if he'd been slapped. You can't be serious. I'm your son, your only son. And Ethan is my grandson who respects me, who visits me, who treats me like a human being and not like a walking joke. That was just a joke. He raised his voice, the veneer of cordiality dissolving. You've always been too dramatic. Dramatic? I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. You humiliated me in front of dozens of people. You reduced me to 3 cruel words. And you still expect to inherit what I built with so much sacrifice? I have rights. Now he was red, fists clenched. I am your rightful heir. Legally, maybe. Morally, not at all. I put down the dish towel and faced my son. You know what your inheritance is, Richard. That T-shirt. I want you to keep it and remember the day you chose mockery instead of love. What followed was an explosion of accusations. He called me senile, vindictive, manipulative. He threatened to cut off my contact with my grandchildren, to sue me, to have me declared incompetent. Do what you think is best, I replied with a calmness that surprised me. But know that I am lucid. I have witnesses to my mental sanity, and all my documents are in order. In fact, after the conversation with Mr. Thompson, I had taken precautions. I underwent a complete psychiatric evaluation with Dr. Collins, recorded, a video declaring my intentions, and got 2 reliable witnesses. I knew my son well enough to anticipate his moves. I left that house with the baby blanket still in my hands. They refused it when they learned of my intentions. In the car, Ethan held my trembling hand. Are you okay, Grandma? I am, my dear. Sad, but I am. I looked out the window at the city lights passing by. You know what hurts the most? It's not that he wants my money. It's that he thinks he can diminish me and still be rewarded for it. That night, alone at home, I opened an old drawer and found a letter from Thomas, my husband. It was dated a year before his death. Eleanor, my love, if you're reading this, it's because I've gone before you. I need to tell you something about our Richard. I know you blame yourself for how he turned out, but it's not your fault. We spoiled him too much. I gave in to the pressures from my mother to raise him as a real man. I fear he has learned to see kindness as weakness. Please, don't let him hurt you. You are strong, you are worthy, you are the most amazing woman I've ever known. Protect yourself, even if it's from our own son. The tears came then, hot and purifying. Thomas knew. He always knew. And even from beyond, he was trying to protect me. And you? What would you do if you discovered that those who should love, you the most use that love as a weapon? The following weeks were a whirlwind. The news about my decision spread like wildfire through the building, the church, the entire neighborhood. Portland may be a huge city, but social circles are small and gossipy. Mrs. Wilson, is it true that you're disinheriting your own son? Asked Mrs. Jenkins after Sunday Mass, her eyes shining with the morbid curiosity typical of busybodies. You reap what you sow, I replied simply, continuing on my way. But I felt the looks, the whispers. Some judged me as cruel, others courageous. Most just wanted more details to fuel the gossip fire. That's when the photo went viral. Jennifer, my dear daughter-in-law, had posted that cursed image on social media, me with the Queen of Failures t-shirt, my face visibly embarrassed, surrounded by laughing people. The caption, "Hilarious family moments. My mother-in-law has the best sense of humor." Ethan showed me the post during one of his visits. It had hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. Some found it funny. Others, especially older people, expressed indignation. "Grandma, this is elder abuse," Ethan said, closing the app angrily. "We could sue them." "No, my dear," I sighed, serving tea for both of us. "I won't spend what little time I have left in courtrooms, but keep this evidence. It might be useful." And it was. 2 weeks later, I received a summons. Richard was filing for guardianship, claiming that I suffered from senile dementia and didn't have the capacity to manage my own assets. The petition was a horror show. It said I was paranoid, vindictive, that I had outbursts of aggression. "This is ridiculous," Mr. Thompson exclaimed upon reading the document in his office. "Mrs. Wilson, I've known you for 30 years. You're more lucid than many 20-year-olds. But I wasn't surprised. I knew my son's ambition, his ability to distort reality to serve his interests. What hurt was discovering through the court documents that he had convinced some neighbors to testify against me. "She talks to herself," said the testimony of Mr. Douglas from apartment 45. What he didn't mention was that I was just humming while watering the plants on the balcony. "She seems confused sometimes," stated the lady from apartment 23. Of course, who doesn't get confused trying to understand how the new digital intercom they installed in the building works? The hearing was scheduled for a month later. I prepared meticulously. Dr. Collins, the psychiatrist, provided a detailed report attesting to my full mental capacity. I gathered proof of all my activities, volunteer work at the church, computer classes for seniors, reading group. Even my water aerobics instructor wrote a letter about my discipline and lucidity. It was during this period that I discovered something devastating. Going through old papers to organize my defense, I found emails exchanged between Richard and Jennifer, printed and forgotten in a folder. They were from 5 years ago, shortly after Thomas's death. "We need to be patient," Richard wrote. "She can't last much longer, and when she's gone, we can finally renovate that old apartment and sell it for a fortune." "But what if she decides to spend it all?" Jennifer replied. "Your mother has been talking about traveling, taking courses. I'll convince her she needs to save for emergencies. Women her age are easily manipulated with a little fear." Each word was a dagger. They had been planning for my death for years, counting my days like vultures. The son I carried in my womb, whom I breastfed, whom I raised with so much love, saw me only as an obstacle to his inheritance. I kept these emails as a trump card. On the day of the hearing, I wore my best outfit, the same one I wore to my niece's wedding. I wanted to show dignity, composure. Ethan was there, as were some true friends who offered to testify on my behalf. The judge was a woman in her 50s, Judge Rebecca Harmon. She observed me attentively while Richard and his lawyer painted a terrible picture. A senile old woman manipulated by her greedy grandson, incapable of managing her own assets. When it was my turn to speak, I presented all the documentation, the medical reports, proof of my activities, testimonies from people who really knew me, and then the final blow, the emails. "I would like Your Honor to see this correspondence," said my lawyer. "It demonstrates the true intentions of the petitioner." Richard's face lost all color when he recognized the papers. He tried to object, said they were illegal evidence, that they were out of context, but the damage was done. The judge also received a folder with screenshots of Jennifer's post, that humiliating photo that went viral. This demonstrates a pattern of disrespect and attempt at public humiliation, my lawyer argued. "Mr. Wilson," the judge finally spoke, after analyzing all the evidence, "you are requesting guardianship of a woman who is clearly in full possession of her mental faculties. Worse, the evidence suggests that your motivations are purely financial. But, Your Honor, she's disinheriting her own son. Isn't that proof of imbalance?" The magistrate looked at me over her glasses. "Mrs. Wilson, can you explain your decision?" I stood up, my legs surprisingly firm. "I can, Your Honor. I spent 79 years believing that a mother's love should be unconditional, that I should accept everything, forgive everything, give everything without expecting anything in return. But I learned, perhaps too late, that love without respect is just servitude." I paused, looking directly at Richard. My son reduced me to a joke, publicly humiliated me, and now wants to declare me incompetent just because I chose to value those who value me. If that's madness, then I prefer to be mad than to be a coward. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the court reporter stopped typing. "Case dismissed," the judge declared. "And Mr. Wilson, consider yourself warned. Any further attempts to embarrass or persecute your mother could result in protective measures." As we left the courthouse, Richard tried to approach me. "Mom, can we talk? Without lawyers?" "We are no longer mother and son," I replied, holding Ethan's arm. "We are just two people who once shared the same blood. You chose your path when you decided that I was worth less than 3 words on a t-shirt. And have you ever had to choose between blood and dignity? Between love and self-respect?" The months that followed the trial were of silent reconstruction. Not of my relationship with Richard, that was irreparably broken, but of my own identity. Who was Eleanor Wilson beyond being a mother, beyond being a grandmother, beyond the roles I had always played? Ethan continued to be my safe harbor. He had moved to an apartment closer to mine. To make visits easier, he said, but I knew it was to protect me from possible retaliation. The dedication of this boy, no, this man I helped raise, moved me daily. "Grandma, I brought that carrot cake you like," he announced, entering with the keys I had given him. "And there's a letter for you." The letter was from Ethan, and I asked him to read it aloud. "Dear Grandma, I know we talk every day, but some things are hard to say in person. I want you to know that you are not just my grandmother. You are my inspiration. I saw you work 3 shifts to pay for my father's college. I saw you take care of Grandpa Thomas during his illness, without a word of complaint. I saw you forgive betrayals, overcome losses, reinvent yourself with each challenge. If I am a decent man today, it's because I had you as an example, not as the queen of failures, but as the queen of resilience. With eternal love, Ethan. The tears came naturally, but they were good tears, of validation, of recognition. There was the proof that my life had not been in vain. Richard didn't completely give up. He tried indirect approaches. He sent his older son, my other grandson, to look for me. Kyle was 16 and arrived embarrassed at my door one Saturday afternoon. "Grandma, Dad sent me to talk to you." "Come in, my dear," I said gently. I had nothing against that boy. "Would you like some coffee? Cookies?" He sat uncomfortably on the sofa. "Dad says you're being unfair. That family is forever, that you need to forgive." "Kyle," I interrupted softly, "what do you think of all this?" He hesitated, nervously fidgeting with his hands. I saw the photo, Grandma. The one with the t-shirt. I didn't think it was cool, but Dad says it was just a joke." "And you? Would you like someone to make a joke like that about you?" His eyes filled with tears. "Mom does that sometimes. Says I'm slow, that I won't get into college, in front of her friends. It hurts, Grandma. It hurts a lot." I hugged that boy, another product of Richard and Jennifer's distorted upbringing. "You're not slow, Kyle. You're sensitive, and that's a quality, not a defect." We talked for hours. I discovered that he wanted to be a musician, but his parents insisted on law or medicine, that he felt suffocated by expectations, that he admired Ethan for having the courage to follow his own path. "Grandma, can I keep coming here, even with all this fighting?" "My door is always open for you, my dear, but it has to be your choice, not a mission from your father." Kyle began to visit me regularly, always hiding from his parents. He brought his guitar, played songs he composed. It was our secret, a space where he could be himself, without judgments. Richard and Jennifer's baby was born in December. A girl, Sophia. I sent a gift by mail, a knitted outfit I made with my own hands, not for them, but for the innocent child. I received a cold message in return. "We appreciate the gift, but prefer that you keep your distance." Life went on. I maintained my routines, my small pleasures. The reading group, where we discussed Virginia Woolf. The canvas painting classes, where I discovered a late talent. Sunday lunches with Ethan, which now included his girlfriend Ashley, a sweet girl who treated me with genuine affection. "Mrs. Wilson," she said one day, "Ethan told me your story. You are very brave." "It's not courage, my dear," I replied, serving more rice. "It's survival. You reach an age where you realize that time is too precious to waste on those who don't value you." The last attempt at reconciliation came unexpectedly. It was the eve of my 80th birthday when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and found myself face to face with Mrs. Margaret Johnson, my former mother-in-law, Thomas's mother. At 95, she was bent but still lucid. "Eleanor," she said, leaning on her cane, "we need to talk." She came in, refused the coffee I offered, and got straight to the point. "I came to ask for forgiveness." I remained silent, waiting. "I was the one who ruined Richard," she continued, her hands trembling. "I insisted that Thomas raise him as a real man, that he show authority, that he not show too much affection. I turned my grandson into a monster of arrogance." "Margaret—" "No, let me finish. I saw what he did to you, that horrible t-shirt, and I saw myself in that, in the humiliations I imposed on you when you were a young daughter-in-law, in the way I always treated you as if you weren't good enough for my son." Her tears were genuine. At 95, she finally saw the damage she had caused. "I forgive you, Margaret," I finally said, "but I can't undo Richard's choices. He's an adult, responsible for his actions." "I know. I just wanted you to know that. You were a good mother, a great mother. The mistake was ours, not yours." She passed away 2 months later. At the funeral, Richard and I stood on opposite sides of the chapel. We didn't exchange words. Kyle and Ethan hugged each other, united in grief. I saw in their young eyes the hope that the next generation would be different. On my 80th birthday, I didn't have a big party. Just an intimate dinner with Ethan, Ashley, Kyle, who came in secret, and some dear friends. No humiliating t-shirts, no sarcastic speeches. Just true love, genuine respect. A toast, Ethan proposed, raising his glass. To the strongest woman I know, who taught us that dignity has no price. As we toasted, my cell phone vibrated. A message from Richard. "Happy birthday, Mom. There's still time to fix this." I deleted it without responding. Some points are definitive, some wounds too deep. But looking around the table, seeing faces that truly loved me, I knew I had made the right choice. I am not the queen of failures. I am Eleanor Wilson, 80 years old, survivor. A woman who learned, late, but learned, that self-love is the most important love of all. And you who have read this far, what did you think? Have you experienced something similar? Comment from which city you're reading this. If this story touched your heart, like and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to choose dignity.